Hello, everyone. I'm Greg Nibbler. This is Fox 12 Now. Thanks for joining us. Wherever you're watching, we appreciate it. So remember that we're here. We've got a lot of things coming up here today. But right now, we're going to talk about something that we've probably either experienced or heard about or have had nightmares about, and that is going to the airport. You see a delay after delay after delay. Your flight gets canceled. What do you do? Or even worse, you're on a layover in Phoenix or something, and then you're stuck in Phoenix for 2 days because your flight hasn't, come back online, or they haven't rebooked you for something. And no offense to Phoenix, but it's really hot. So what do you do in that situation? Well, that's something that a lot of people have been trying to figure out. There's guides out there, but sometimes it depends on the airport, depends where you're at, depends what's going on there. And the Biden administration actually on Monday with the transportation department said they're looking at ways to help fix that for all of us who are on those flights and who may have had something like this happen to us. Well, we're going to talk a little bit more about this right now. And joining me, I've got an expert to cover this because we need an expert to actually talk about all of these things that are happening with that. So we've got Mark Osterman, the editor at Travel on Point. Mark, first off, thank you very much for joining us. Appreciate it. Can you walk us through all of this? Like, what do you do if your flight is canceled?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a stressful situation, and I got a duck from all the Phoenix lovers out there after you threw the hate over there. But
Sorry. I mean, I like Phoenix. It's great, but it's hot.
it is. It depends on the time of year you're there, but I totally understand. But yeah, it's a stressful situation. Travel's stressful as it starts out to begin with. So when you get hit with that, you start to panic. What do? You see the line forming at the desk and all of that. So what I like to do when it happens is first thing I do is I pull my phone out and I start looking at other options for flights. Download that airline app. They might even alert you and say, hey, we have these extra flights available to you. Would you like to take one of them? And sometimes it actually happens quicker than they even let you know at the airport. So definitely have that app on your phone. And then once you have that, you can send messages to the airlines or reach out to them on Twitter via DM, stuff like that. So you kind of want to be attacking this at different ways. So when you're waiting in line, make sure you're on the phone calling them after you sent the message on Twitter or through the app. So you got a whole bunch of things going on at once and trying to maximize the time you have because you don't want those seats to get stolen before you get to the front of the line.
So it really is just reaching out as many angles and many ways as possible.
Yeah, and that's the best way to do it, especially if you're with a couple other people, like if you're with your spouse or family member or something, like have them be working one angle while you work another, so it's not so crazy. Otherwise, you might be there with like your computer out and your phone out trying to, to make it work.
Which I have done that before, actually, for something. So, it's really frustrating. But I mean, even that, you have to be with a group of people for that. And you're reaching out from all the different angles. There's no real streamlined way, it seems, to handle this. There's no like one way, like this is the right way if you're a single person right there, other than reaching out through all those angles. Is that your experience with this?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple things you can try to do. You can look at it for a different gate for the same airline that doesn't have a line to get to the front of the line. Or if you have status or lounge access through your credit card, a lot of times the agents at the lounges can, rebook you and there's less of a line there. So if you have those things, definitely run there first. Don't get in the line by the gate, head straight to the lounge. They'll help you out pretty quickly.
So what actually will happen right now? I know because we see all the horror stories about this. You see it online, people posting on Twitter, wherever, on social media about, my flight got canceled and such airline, I'm not going to call out any one airline, you're welcome to do that, won't refund me my ticket or wouldn't rebook or said it was, my fault. You hear all of these things going on. Is it the same airline to airline or is it completely different depending on which one you're dealing with?
Yeah, it's usually the same from airline to airline. Some might be more willing to help you out with food or a hotel, stuff like that. It all kind of depends. And then you also have more options with certain airlines depending on their airline agreements. And that means that they work with other airlines. They might put you on a seat, like Delta might put you on a seat for American, let's say, where the low-cost carriers like Frontier, Spirit, Southwest and Allegiant do not do that. They don't have any of those agreements in place. So if you get stranded, you're kind of stuck. So what all they have to do is put you on the next flight that they can. That could be later that day, it could be the next day, it could be later that week, as we saw with Southwest back in December. All bets are off at that point, but they don't really owe you anything. They do have to refund you if you decide to not take the remainder of your flight. Whatever is left of that portion, they have to give you the credit back. Don't take the voucher. ask for the actual money because vouchers have expiration dates and everything like that. But they really aren't required to do anything but eventually get you where you need to go.
And that there's no time limit on that. They're not required to do anything. It'll be whenever they decide that this is what's going to work.
Yep.
Wow. So, and that's kind of where we're at right now with this. And is this the same? I know in other countries, and let's just kind of cut to that because I've seen a lot of this too. We're talking about the United States right now, but in other countries, there's a lot of different rules and ways and regulations that it seems like cover travelers a lot better. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I actually ran through it back in December. We were flying home from Germany, and we had a mechanical delay out of Munich on the way to Frankfurt. We ended up missing the connection from Frankfurt back to Detroit. So, we were stranded for an extra night, and we could have waited in line to try to get some compensation or a room or food or something along those lines. But it was like a 3 hour wait. So we just, booked a hotel for cheap down the road and kind of made a night of it. But they do have compensation set in place that we ended up getting 1,200 euros, 600 euros per person. I filled out an online form. They reached out after a week or so and said, it looks like we owe you money. We'll let you know. And within 7 weeks, the money was in my bank account. So that's something that, takes a little bit of the sting off. If you're stuck there for a day or two, at least you're getting some money back. You can cover some of your expenses if you don't have a credit card that has coverage for delays or cancellations or anything like that. So it kind of lessens the blow a bit. And we got an extra day in Europe and it was free, so we liked it.
Yeah, I mean that's not a bad situation at all. If you've got to be stuck, you're getting money, you're in Europe. I mean, yeah, that's a pretty good situation right there. I know there's definitely some worse ones out there that have happened, but that's because, as you mentioned, so that's because it was in Europe, something specific to Germany or whatever it was. That's their regulation.
Yeah, it's EU 261. So that's the law that they have. If you're flying into Europe or you're flying a European carrier to the US, they have to do it. So even if you're flying like Delta into Europe, they have to abide by it. So, there's different leeways there on the rules. And even Canada has something similar, but they took, the teeth out of it a bit. And that was the airlines fought back and they rolled it out and they allowed, mechanical issues that can be called for safety. They don't have to make the payment. So if like a seatbelt's busted, you can't ride in that seat because it's a safety precaution, but it's technically their fault that they didn't have it up to code, but yet that's not a thing that they have to pay out for. So, that's what you kind of have to learn and jump through. And with Biden wanting to roll out these things, I hope it's a lot more like the European laws than the Canadian laws for sure.
Yeah, and let's get to that. So Biden, with the transportation department and Pete Buttigieg yesterday, they had a big announcement saying we want to fix some of these. We've heard all the complaints, and you mentioned the Southwest one, but even I feel like every airline's had something along these lines where there's been some kind of delays or mass cancellations for whatever reasons, and people are clearly unhappy. They heard that. They said, hey, we want to propose these changes. But what were the changes that they're proposing? I guess let's walk through those first.
Yeah, it's kind of, just broad strokes right now. They want to put some type of compensation into place, and they haven't been specific on that. They've said we can look at airline miles or vouchers or a monetary requirements. So, and this is going to be, interesting to watch it play out because, the airlines are going to fight back and the lobbyists are going to try to kill this as much as they possibly can. And I hope that it ends up being a monetary thing. With airline miles, one airline mile to the next can be worth completely different amounts. So if you get a Delta Sky mile, it isn't worth as much as a United mile and stuff like that. So you're not going to get the same compensation from airline to airline. Same thing with vouchers. There's certain rules with vouchers. Some airlines, they expire quickly. Other, they're good for life with Southwest right now. But you can't, transfer those around or anything like that. So I really hope that they don't go that route. And that's kind of what he had, thrown out there as an option. But it really doesn't work for us as consumers, I don't think.
So that's the proposal, is that you would just get airline miles, which, like you said, is not universal, to go from airline to airline on that kind of thing. Is there any way to regulate that to make those work the same, or that's kind of a company decision?
Yeah, that's a company decision, and they, we've seen over time that they devalue those and they make them worth less. what they were worth 5 years ago is probably 40-50% less than what they're worth now. So if they did instill this law, and they're having to give out airline miles for all these mechanical failures and stuff like that, they're probably just going to devalue them down to a penny a piece or something like that. So you're getting 20,000 airline miles. It sounds great when it's really only worth $200. Did you get much? Was it worth your time and hassle? So I hope they don't go that route. Same thing with the vouchers. Like a Spirit Airlines voucher is only good for the actual portion of the ticket that's the flight, and that doesn't include taxes and fees. Well, taxes and fees on a Spirit Airlines flight can be $80 of the $100 ticket. So, and that voucher is a one-time use, could say $100, but you're only going to get $20 off your ticket. Not to mention they charge you $20 to book it online. So you're not getting anything at that point. Yeah. So it's those are the little tricks and things they can do if they go that route. They can play games with it and make it so it really doesn't hurt them in any way. Where if they have to cut a check or deposit money into your bank account, that's something that's coming out of their pocket, and they might actually look to make improvements, to technology, like a Southwest that has technology from the 90s, and that's what's running into problems continuously over the years. And they don't have enough staff and things like that, and they kind of run at bare bones because what's the hurt if something goes wrong? There's no slap on the wrist coming.
Right. And there's nothing that's really going to punish them over that kind of an issue. So, what would you think? Looking at they're saying they're going to propose these rules later on this year, just to clarify for everybody. So this is the whole meeting that they had, the whole kind of big press conference saying, we heard you, later on this year, here's what we're going to propose things. As you said, it might just be something like miles, we've got things that we'll do. So don't worry.
We'll do something in the future at some point. We promise.
Yeah, I think we've all heard that, that kind of promise before. What do you think would be ideal? What would be the model that would be the best thing to follow?
I really don't think they need to recreate the wheel here. I mean, I think the European laws are really good. They're solid. They've shown that they can work over time, and the airlines have done with it. They push back a little bit at times, but for the most part, it's pretty easy to get your money paid. Where you look at Canada, where they leave some grayness in the rule, and the airlines basically deny everything, and then there's a fight, and a lot of people don't know any better. So the first denial that comes, they just say, "Oh, okay, well that's that's the way it's supposed to be." Where if you push back, they've just won a case. A couple people just won a case against, I believe, Air Canada, and because there was a staff shortage, and they said, well, that's a safety issue. We didn't have enough people. Well, yeah, but you didn't staff enough people. It's your own fault. So they ended up getting paid, but that how many people tried to do that originally and didn't get paid and didn't fight the good fight to the end. So I really hope they stick with like the European laws. It's already well done, written out there. You don't need to rewrite it. Just copy and paste. There you go.
Copy and paste. I like that. That sounds good for all of us. All right. Before we go, though, I have two more quick questions. One, you talked about like your best experience for a layover, where you got the extra day in Europe, you got $1,200 between the two of you, and all of that. Do you have a worse experience one that you can share with us?
Yeah. Recently, a couple years ago, my kids were, I think, like 2 and 4. And we were flying Southwest down to Orlando to take them to Disney. And our flight out of Detroit, we're connecting in Atlanta. Our flight out of Detroit got delayed by like an hour, which wasn't a big deal, but we had a short connection. And my parents actually were living in Atlanta, so they were going to jump on the flight with us in Atlanta. Cool thing, kids flying, get to see the grandkids while they go down to Disney. And we missed that flight. And the next, because they didn't have an interline agreement, the next flight they could put us on was at like 11 p.m. that night. So we got stranded at the airport for about 12 hours, which was pretty horrible. We ended up booking, a Hyatt Place hotel down the street for 5,000 points so we could go relax and watch TV. But there's a lot of people that don't have that availability or are able to do that. So they would just be sitting in an airport with a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, and it's pretty horrible.
I've seen those people before. Yeah, stuck there for hours and hours and hours. That just does not seem pleasant for anybody involved. That's a long time.
No. It's like a Disney meltdown where you see kids walking around Disney and the parents just lose it. That's basically airport,
everybody's screaming and hungry and tired, and yeah. Yeah, so we want to avoid that kind of thing. So hopefully, if that does happen, maybe there's some future compensation that's coming up down the road. Well, Mark, for everybody to know too, can you just explain what it is that you do and how they can follow you and everything that you're doing with the travel industry?
Yeah, I write for a website called Travel on Points, and we talk about credit card points, traveling the world for pennies on the dollar using, miles you earn from credit cards and sign up bonuses and all of that. And we talk about deals and finding, award space on flights and all the tricks that everybody thinks is really difficult. We make it easy for you. So you can, check out the website, or you can follow me on Twitter at Detroit Mark. Either of those options. We have a big Facebook group, 60,000 members. Just search Travel on Points on the Facebook app, and you'll find us there.
All right. Well, Mark, thank you very much for joining us to talk about this. This is very informative, and the bottom line is we know what we hope they're going to do. We'll see what they're going to do, but definitely some better models out there than we have. All right, Mark, thank you very much.
We can hope.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
All right, so there we go. A little bit of information on what to do if your flight does get canceled or delayed or whatever. And hopefully, these changes will actually happen later this year. I think if the more people are aware of them, the more maybe there'll be a little bit pressured to actually do something with that. So again, you're watching Fox 12 now, and I do want to say that coming up, we are going to be joined by Kevin Cook, aka Poison Waters, who is the Starlight Parade Grand Marshal this year. So we're going to be talking to Kevin just about experiences in Portland, how this all came about, all kinds of things with that as part of Fox 12 Now. So wherever you're watching us, we'll be back on in, 15 minutes or so. So just stick around on the app or YouTube or whatever channel you're watching this on and join us there. I'm Greg Nibbler. Thanks for watching.